Hey guys, it's Kelly, aka Kelawanda, coming to you after 5 years of a YouTube hiatus. So, for those of you that have never seen me before and wonder why some woman is about to pour the details of her life onto the YouTube community, I'll give you a quick recap. About 10 years ago in 2009, I started vlogging my progress after my weight loss surgery that I had out of the country. That was followed up by my skin removal surgery, plastic surgery slash tummy tuck, whatever you want to call it. I then got married, I then had a baby, and then I disappeared off the face of the earth. So I am here to fill people in, to let people know what's been going on with me during those 5 years. And then I'm going to start doing some updated weight loss videos. So where do we begin? I guess I stopped about 5 years ago in 2014. So I'll back that up a little bit. In 2013, I got pregnant with my son, and my pregnancy was horrible. I was sick all the time. When they call it morning sickness, there's a horrible name because it wasn't in the morning. It was in the morning. It was in the afternoon. It was at night. It was terrible, terrible. Vomiting all the time. I was so sick. Um, Towards the end of my pregnancy, I realized as I am kind of thinking about what I'm going to talk about, the majority of this is actually going to be about my son. So, to summarize this video, this is going to be how having children took a huge toll on my life and kind of, side railed me, and now I'm kind of getting back on track. So that's the summary of this video now that I'm talking and realizing where this is going. So anyways, back to my pregnancy. I had posted a video when I was 39 weeks pregnant. They were about to induce me, and I didn't know at the time, but they were actually trying to prevent me from developing a life-threatening condition. So my blood pressure had been steadily climbing up throughout my pregnancy, and I had never had an issue with blood pressure before. So it's what they call gestational hypertension, meaning I developed high blood pressure in my pregnancy. I'm going to look over at my notes here on occasion, so don't mind me glancing over here. But so they induced me. I was in labor for 36 hours. I have my son. I think everything's great. I go home. A few days later, the visiting nurse shows up, takes my blood pressure, looks concerned, and says you need to go to the emergency room immediately. So I go, myself, my baby, my husband, my mother-in-law. We're in the room, we're laughing, we're having a good time, we're smiling, we're enjoying the baby. And the staff suddenly becomes very serious, and tells me that I'm being admitted. So at that point, I knew something was wrong. They told me that I had developed HELLP syndrome, and I'm going to pronounce this incorrectly, but it's HELLP. I don't know how to pronounce the H, hemolysis, elevated liver enzymes, and low platelet. So in other words, my body was shutting down, and can sometimes lead to death. So people that develop HELLP syndrome have my liver was shutting down, my enzymes were really high, my blood pressure was through the roof. People can become eclamptic, which is having seizures. People can have strokes. After I had been there for a little while, they did downgrade me to severe preeclampsia, which is similar to HELLP syndrome. Thank God I didn't die, but I was very concerned for a moment there. And there was actually a very scary moment when my body was kind of convulsing. They couldn't get my blood pressure to go down. And I asked the doctor, am I going to die? And he didn't say no. He said something along the lines of, I'm going to try to prevent that. So at that moment, I realized that it was very serious. Luckily, I pulled through, went home to enjoy my son, who now looking back, I realized was a very high needs baby. He hated his car seat, hated, despised his car seat, couldn't go anywhere. Didn't matter if somebody was with him, didn't matter if he had a toy, didn't matter if he had music, didn't matter if he was fed. He hated his car seat, and for the first 14 months of his life would scream bloody murder no matter how long the car ride was. If I had to drive 5 minutes to the store, if I had to drive 20 minutes to the doctor, if I had to go an hour to visit a family member. And if anyone has ever dealt with that before, it's not an easy situation at all. And so I was confined to my house for a very long time after having my son, trying to avoid going out in the car because, to be honest, it was so terrible. It was like he was dying the way he would scream. I would have to pull over, breastfeed him, put him back in the car seat, and then just drive as long as I could with the screaming. And when I couldn't take it anymore, pull over, breastfeed him, put him back, and repeat. So then the other thing at the time I didn't really realize was an issue. I was the youngest of, I have a sister, but I have four step siblings. So I was the youngest of six. They all had children way before me, so I had 15 nieces and nephews that I helped out with. I was the babysitter. My siblings were young, so they were still in the party phase, so I watched them a lot. And so I kind of knew something was different about my son, but didn't know at the time that it was like an area of concern. So anyways, he would never sleep on his own. Like I couldn't even lay him down for 20 minutes. The majority of my life for the first year and a half was just holding him. And I'm fine with that. I'm into baby wearing. But when it comes to a point where I can't even lay him down for 10 minutes so I can go to the bathroom or get something to eat, life became pretty stressful. So I'm going to glance over at my notes here so I can kind of keep myself on track. I've been talking for 5 minutes already and I've only covered 1 year. I started trying to go back to work. I was working very part-time. I wanted to start working more, and daycare providers were quitting. I had an in-home daycare where he would just scream and they said, you can't bring him anymore. I had a daycare where he was biting kids and they said, you can't bring him anymore. I had people come to the house and they said, I don't want to watch him anymore. So after a while, I started realizing like something's going on here. I need help. So let me go on to 2016. So we're about 3 years ago. When he was 2.5 or so, I got pregnant with my daughter. And during that time, we moved. What I got in my notes here? Oh, so one thing is through all this time, like from 2009 till current, I really haven't felt like my body has been mine and that I can just relax and enjoy it. 2009, I had my surgery, so there was all the weight loss and the recovery from that. 2012, I had my skin removal, and that was a really long, painful recovery. And you know, you forget these things, but over the last day or two, I've been watching my old videos and reminding myself everything I've been through. So 2013, I had my pregnancy. So 2014, 15, 16, I'm breastfeeding my son. Once I get pregnant with my daughter, I quit breastfeeding him. So then I'm pregnant for the next 9 months, and then I breastfeed her for the next 2.5 years. So as you see, there's really been no break for the last 10 years, or even just looking at pregnancy and nursing. I've either been pregnant and or nursing for the last 6 years. That's pretty intense. So I am just like looking forward to this period of my life of really like reclaiming it and making it mine. And so that's why I wanted to make this video as a recap so I can start getting into that new stuff. So going back to my son, when my daughter was born and he turned 3, and I finally realized, you know what, like I need help, like something's going on here. And so I reached out to Build Up, which is, I don't know if it's just a Michigan-based thing or if that's what it is all throughout the United States. He had aged out of the early on program, which covers 0 to 36 months because everybody kept telling me, oh, he's normal, he's fine. So once he hit 3, and it's like, no, this stuff isn't normal, they admitted him to a special ed preschool, and he was later diagnosed with sensory processing disorder. He has a rule out for ADHD, which means he's not old enough to technically give the diagnosis yet. He later was diagnosed at age 4 with pervasive developmental disorder. Technically, that diagnosis no longer exists because they consider anybody that receives that diagnosis to be on the autism spectrum. I will say, though, there's kind of a gray area. The doctors don't know for sure if he is autistic. He maybe would be what you would have considered Asperger's back in the day, but that diagnosis no longer exists. So in the meantime, we're just trying to work with his symptoms, and he gets occupational therapy, he gets social skills group. His language is off the charts. That's never been a concern. He's always made great eye contact. He is social, he is affectionate. So he's got a lot of strengths, but he also has a lot of social and emotional needs. And I don't know if anyone's familiar with sensory processing disorder and the meltdowns that occur when a child is overwhelmed by a sensory experience, or when they are kind of like, you know, getting up in your personal space and crashing into things and being really loud because they need sensory input. So the last, 3 years of my life, I have been obsessively learning about this to try to help him. And I feel terrible to say this, but ages 3 and 4 of his life, so which would have been like 2017, 2018, were the worst years of my life. I love my son. I would die for him. He's awesome. He's hilarious. He's funny. He's smart. But raising him has been one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life. And I have done a lot of crazy things in my life. But again, I love him. He's great. But it really really, really threw me off my base. So let me talk a little bit about my daughter. She's great. She's so cute. She's 2.5. She potentially has some sensory stuff going on, but she's much better socially and emotionally. She's a lot easier to deal with, though she also had the car seat screaming thing a little bit longer than him. I think she was about 18 months. It wasn't as intense. I could drive farther distances. I could maybe get 20 minutes out of her before she started screaming. But still, raising these two lovely children has been quite the experience. So let me look at my notes and see what I wanted to talk about. To be honest, I think that kind of brings me up to date. Now that he's entered kindergarten, he's mainstreamed, he has an IEP. I have been able to put my daughter in daycare and get into my own personal stuff, working on some of my projects, starting to focus on myself, my health, my weight. And I made a crazy discovery about my sleeve that I had back in 2009. However, I'm going to end this video here. And in a few days, you guys are going to have an update concerning what I discovered and what I decided to do about it. So thank you so much if you made it, almost 12 minutes into this video. I love you all. Making these videos in the past was so helpful to me. I know it helped other people, but it really helped me as well. And I'm actually enjoying going back and watching them. So I hope that doesn't sound like conceited or anything, but thank you so much. And I hope to hear from you guys in the comments section.